could have changed your diaper when you were a baby, you little whippersnapper. Now, I'm not talking to you, but that's something I've wanted to say many times to principals that I've had that were actually younger than I was. I didn't have that hard a time when I was younger and principals were older than I was. But I was kind of always interested in how am I going to react in having a boss who's younger than I am. And I could kind of see it coming. In fact, around the little late part of my career, I had a principal that we had the same birthday. I'm not talking about the same day, and we were the same exact age. So I knew that was probably my last chance before I started having principals that were younger than I was. But it's been kind of downhill ever since. And towards the end of my career, I've been working with 4 principals that were not alive when I started teaching. But this really isn't unusual as our population gets older and older and we stay in the workforce longer. We're more and more likely to work for somebody that's younger than we are. And it's really not unusual at all. As far back as 2014, about 38% of workers, and I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm talking about in the overall workforce, worked for somebody younger than them, and that number is only going up. And there's been other studies done that shows that this dynamic of working for somebody younger than you is very, very stressful. And to be fair, I'm sure the younger administrator or younger boss has their share of stress having to deal with somebody that's older and more experienced and possibly more stubborn than somebody that's working for them that's younger. And so what I'd like to do today is address that type of dynamic. What can the young whippersnappers do to ease relations with somebody in the workplace that's older than they are? And then also, what can the geezers do to make things easier for the whippersnappers, because they deserve consideration as well. And I'm going to start with you whippersnappers, and I'm going to be respectful, okay? And I'm going to be fair too, because I'm going to address us geezers in just a few minutes. But my number one suggestion is don't act like the world began when you arrived. And don't act like you know everything. I think you'll gather a great amount of respect from the geezers if you ask their opinion, you value their opinion. Because you have to realize when you come in, a lot of things that you think are new and exciting from the latest workshop that you went to or the latest thing that you read, there's a good chance that it has actually been around possibly for 30, 40, or 50 years. And you're acting like it's totally new. And a lot of the geezers know that what you're presenting has been around before, and whether it worked or whether it did not work or how it could be improved. And so you need to value their opinion and seek their opinions out. And number 2, you may really know the latest in educational trends, and some of those might be good, but remember, those trends mean nothing if you haven't developed your leadership and management skills. So make sure you have those developed as well. And just because older faculty members don't necessarily understand Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok, I can't even say it, TikTok, doesn't mean they're not real people. So please take the time to talk to them, ask them how their weekend was, ask them how their family's doing, just learn little things about them to show that you value them as people. And also, don't feel like you have to present yourself as knowing everything, and don't act like you know something that you don't. Just because you were in band or your great Uncle Herman was in John Philip Sousa's band doesn't mean you really know what it's like to be a band director. And you need to rely on what the band director says it's like to be a band director, not just your experience in band, because those are two very, very different things. Also, don't take yourself seriously. If it's anything that drives geezers crazy, it's whippersnappers who come in and have way too much self-importance and aren't willing to laugh at themselves and have a sense of humor about things. So if you need to lighten up, it'll make things go a lot better. Another suggestion that can help is do everything in your power to make their life easier. Because I can tell you, as a geezer, when all this new stuff comes in, it can be very, very frustrating, particularly maybe from a technological angle. And so the more helpful you are in trying to help the geezers understand that, the more that they will appreciate that. Because you have to understand, people that have been teaching 25, 30 years want to enjoy their final years. And it can be very, very frustrating to have had a wonderful career for 20, 25 years, and all of a sudden things are just changing so fast and things are getting very, very frustrating. So respect their final years and help them enjoy it and help them learn the new skills that they need to finish strong. And also another thing that might be something that younger people do a lot, but don't send texts and emails any time of day or night. When they're at home, leave them alone, okay? And I got to where I didn't open texts that I thought were going to probably aggravate me during the evening, but it'd be really nice if I didn't have to even see that they were even there at all, because then it's kind of hovering over me. Oh, I'm not opening this email from my principal. Okay, reserve stuff for the workday. And finally, older faculty members really appreciate when you explain why you're doing things. What is the reasoning behind it? And even more important, that the reasoning makes sense. And we'd really even appreciate it if you asked our opinion about the reasoning that goes into this decision that you've made. But we like to have things explained as opposed to just be the because I said so kind of mentality. Now, I told you that I was going to be fair, and so now I'm going to talk to the geezers a little bit, my fellow geezers. Number one, be understanding of the position that the young whippersnapper is in. He or she is fully aware that they are working with people that are old enough to be their parents, maybe even grandparents. They know that, and that is not easy for them. So be as understanding with that as you can. Secondly, be respectful. I can tell you, as I got older and I've been teaching 25 to 30 years, and then some young whippersnapper principal would come in, it was a little easier for me to be frank with them. And so there was really a line there where it was really easy for me to maybe be more frank than I should, and maybe not as respectful as I should, because they are my boss. And so we still need to be respectful to them, even though they're younger. Thirdly, lead from below. Now, this can kind of be difficult, but I think it's very, very important when a young whippersnapper comes in, and they're the principal or assistant principal, that older faculty members, you actually can lead from below. And your goal is to maybe become a sort of mentor. Have a number of formal or informal times where you just kind of sit down and talk about things, and maybe you can take on a mentor role if the whippersnapper has the right attitude themselves about accepting advice and leaning on those who have more experience. Next, when dealing with a whippersnapper, just get everything on the table. You know, I had a whippersnapper principal once, and when I met with him, I just said, look, I just put it up front, that it wasn't necessarily going to be really easy for me to deal with a principal that was younger than I was. And I just kind of laid it out there and talked about how I was going to do the best that I could do, and kind of, you know, pointed out some things that I would think would help our relationship and working together with this dynamic that we had of somebody younger as the boss of somebody older. And then also, this is probably one of the toughest ones, is be open to new ideas. Even in some of these newest fads that come along, some of them are actually a good thing. And a lot of times it's easy to sit back and say, this too shall pass. And maybe it will. But try to look at things with fresh eyes, because maybe this principal has a way of doing things that will make something work that didn't work maybe 10, 15, or 20 years before. Give them a chance to try it, and maybe you can work with them and mentor them to help tweak it a little bit so it'll work better than the last time that your school did a particular project. But give these guys a chance, because all of us were young at some point and wanted to try new things and do new things, and our support as geezers can really help a whippersnapper out and when they're trying to grow and develop as an educator like we did when we were younger. And finally, no matter how unhappy you may be with things, look on the positive side. Find some things that you like and communicate those to the whippersnapper. You know, after my first year with a brand new principal, I actually sent him a note and I listed 7 things that I liked about that year. 7 things that he was responsible for that I liked and thought went well. Now, I had quite a list of things that I didn't like, and I didn't mention those, but I was trying to stay positive in this situation. And particularly if I talk about things that I did like, he's more likely to continue those things because he got good feedback on those. And finally, whichever side you're on, whether you're the young whippersnapper or the older geezer, you've got to keep the big picture in mind here. And that big picture includes our students. Because when there's tension between older faculty members and younger administration, ultimately the ones who are penalized by that tension there is going to be the students. And so I think both sides need to keep the students in mind and what is best for those students. And what's best for those students is that everybody respects each other and works together as a cohesive team to get the best the results that they can for those that we're there to serve. It's been great being with you today, and hope you'll see me on my next episode of Band Stuff.